anonymousretailer.com.
Hello, anonymous retailers. I'm Jason from anonymousretailer.com. Welcome to our first ever anonymous retailer interview. ChatGPT is recommending products, Google AI is assembling answers, and retailers are scrambling to stay visible. But this isn't about consumers using AI to shop. It's about retailers becoming relevant inside AI systems in the first place. Today, from phone books to answers, how specialty retailers stay relevant in the AI era, with Justin McKelvey, retail OG, software engineer, AI expert, and founder of Super Duper. Let's get into it. Justin, how you doing today, my friend?
Doing awesome. Thanks for having me, man.
I appreciate you joining us today. Consumers are turning to AI for shopping advice. ChatGPT is recommending products. Google AI is assembling answers from across the web. And retailers are being told they need to make themselves discoverable to LLMs or risk becoming invisible. But here's what most of those conversations miss. This isn't about consumers using AI to shop. It's about retailers becoming relevant inside AI systems in the first place. And the wild part is we've already lived through this exact shift once. We just don't realize it yet. Before we jump into this, help me set the table. When retailers hear AI search or answer engines, what do they think we're talking about?
Good point. I think most retailers hear AI search and immediately think, oh no, I need to get something on a ChatGPT, similar to like it was a search engine. And so I need to get my products into Gemini. And how do we do that? And tactical approach. But there's a shift that's happening that's different. When someone asks about ChatGPT, when they ask GPT, like, what ski boots should I buy for wide feet? It's more detailed than Google. It's assembling an answer from all these different sources and pulling in that answer. So showing your expertise is more important than just getting keywords up somewhere. So it's not just about consumers shopping inside of AI, which is becoming a thing, but it's about buying directly through ChatGPT. So building an AI system, not just keywords.
Okay. So what we're talking about is a shift in distribution and relevance, not just technology.
Absolutely.
And if retailers understand that, they'd recognize that pattern pretty immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. Definite shift going on, just like not just tactical, but since we've seen this in the past, kind of the approach is going to feel familiar if you can recognize it happening.
All right, so let's start here. You walk into a room full of specialty retailers and tell them AI search is changing how customers find them. What's the reaction you get? Why do you think it feels so foreign to them when it's actually a pattern they've seen before?
Yeah, that being in retail in the past and managing stores and having that feeling is the reaction is exhaustion. And it's just tired of ongoing stuff again and again. So you spent 15 or 20 years figuring out how Google works and then understanding keywords. And you've hired SEO and you've built websites, built these things a million times. So you need to be on Google to survive. And that is important, but the disruption model is changing. So the thing is, they've already lived through this exact shift before. So they don't see it as the same pattern as always. How did people find you before Google? And they say yellow pages, local directories, people drove by the shop. And when Google came along, that changed. So there's that analogy of then it clicks again to say, remember that shift and the panic and having to change again, but it's at a different level now. So the pattern is the same, just the details are different. So retailers are actually positioned better this time because they've seen it before and they know how to recognize it. So as long as you're positioning yourself to recognize a shift, you can get ahead of that.
All right, so let's go back to the mid-2000s. I'm talking pre-iPhone, pre-Google dominance, when discovery still meant something very different. Let's go back to how retailers actually got found before search engines became the default answer to everything.
Yep. So pre-Google, there was a few ways people found you as a retailer. You're taking out a local ad. So people are either finding you in a local newspaper that they're stumbling across or they subscribe to, or they were driving past your shop or they're seeing a billboard. That was just early marketing days. Everybody knows that approach. Then there was a shift where everyone got a device that was searchable. That phone book or newspaper was now in your hand every day. And so search became instant. So you're in a ski shop, you're trying on boots, the customer pulls out a phone and says, hey, here's ski boots near me for wide feet. And they're not browsing a directory. They're looking for a specific question to get a specific answer. So three things kind of happen at once. You've got discovery became instant. So before you hope someone saw your listing or drove by the shop, they're actively searching and it's on their phone. became comparative. So they've got all these different shops to compare to instantly in their hand. And then it became currency. So they're not just browsing like categories of things anymore and searching for stuff. They're searching for, how do I break in my ski boots and how do I find something for wide feet? So gatekeepers were out of the way. People started controlling access to information instead of kind of the big box approach. So Yellow Pages disappeared, and then it became instant in your hand. So that shift is what's making this change, like early 2000s. So Yellow Pages to Google is the bigger picture approach here.
Yeah. So you kind of you just touched on my next point here. What was the actual shift that collapsed the old model? And that's exactly what it was. It was that everybody came in, they all of a sudden had a phone book in their pocket. I remember the shift. I remember it exactly. It's funny because back when I was operating Kingpins, I saw two tectonic shifts in like the first 5 years that I was open. I'm gonna go back before the Yellow Pages, so probably we're talking 2005. I was running a 1/8 of a page ad in a local newspaper that was like the paper that you would find all the concerts and stuff and all the local happenings in. And it was $800 a week. It was expensive, for an 1/8 of a page. And so that first major tectonic shift that happened that I saw was with MySpace.
Going way back. Love it.
Way back. We're going way back here. Yeah. So I started using MySpace to market the store, and probably unethically, we were buying these bots to where you could go onto somebody's page and just friend their entire list. So all of a sudden,
that's a good point. I never got in on those bots, but yeah, I know what you're talking about now. Yeah.
And so and within a couple of weeks, we had like 40,000 followers we maxed out the MySpace count of how many people you could have following you, and I remember vividly, I had this girl in my store that was trying to get me to re-up my ads, and I just had this like stream of people coming in off of the strength of MySpace that had just found out about us while she was there.
So
there was just all this foot traffic, and I was just telling her, I was like, look, I spent like $60 on these bots over the past like 3 weeks to get all of these people coming in here, and I've been dropping $800 a week with you. You're out. And it was interesting for her to see it because I could see the look on her face, so then
like it just became
further
real.
than that. So then now the next evolution of that, we moved into when Google started edging out the Yellow Pages, and I watched that tectonic shift happen over the next, so we were probably talking 2005. So the next 4 years, I watched that happen, and at the same thing, I was paying $120, maybe $150 a year per category to have a skateboard category and have a snowboard category bolded out, and again, not really getting any good results, but then I had a website built with a blog and a photo bucket account, and I started learning some basic SEO, and that just started ripping. So we went from
funny to make the MySpace. Yeah,
we went from this shift from print ads to MySpace, which was huge. That was major. I would say that was probably one major pivot in my business. And then the next major pivot was SEO. I mean, the stuff you could do with a photo bucket account back in the day and a blog. I mean, we were owning any business we were in because people just were not paying attention to web content at that point in time or executing it. So it was just wide open.
Yeah. That is funny. We've known each other a long time and we've never talked about that, but that's just hilarious thinking about knowing you and going through that time period and what that shift did. It reminds me of like Dane Cook, taking advantage of MySpace and how he got popular off of that. Knowing that huge shift happened then is just super interesting to think about. Are you going to buy it off of like hoping they find a newspaper, or are you buying traffic in whatever source possible? And, through MySpace.
It was amazing. I was using MySpace as a website. I wasn't even using my website anymore at that point, but then then Facebook started to come into the fold, and then MySpace I think MySpace got sold in that period too. And it kind of just became not hot anymore. It just wasn't hot.
Yeah.
It wasn't popping anymore, and so that
Facebook was, for sure.
and that, but that, PhotoBucket kicked in, and I actually learned to use PhotoBucket using MySpace, because that's how you would customize everything, and you would get all those short codes and everything and customize the page out. But early on, like just learning about like alt tags and image descriptions and captions and stuff like that you could do within PhotoBucket and drop that into your blog. I mean, that was huge. And I mean, we were just blowing up during that period, and just really just pulling in all this traffic for the whole region, because nobody was really doing anything at that point in time, and so those are really two big tectonic shifts that I want to lay out here in kind of what we're talking about in this conversation. So back to my question of what was the actual shift that collapsed the old model. I mean, I think that's very illustrative of what happened. You had all of these social media platforms coming into play that allowed small-time retailers, and I really want to focus on that aspect of it, small-time retailers, independent people. I mean, I was a little speck, 1,300 square feet on Westheimer in Houston, Texas, that was able to amplify out this massive message just by having these simple resources. So we had that, and then we evolved into into Google and SEO and blogging, and Google local search really didn't become relevant until about 2009. But we're talking 2005 to 2009 was a slow change. And it didn't all just happen overnight.
Yeah, I think all those things were happening kind of around the same time. If you say, MySpace was happening, but then iPhone at the same time, and then social media happened, all in that frame of things shifting within that 5 to 10 year period. That's a massive shift, but all those things were kind of rolling at the same time and building on each other to switch into Google being like, well, somebody needs to be the key player here for search, and then search local at the same time. So yeah, it all compounded there in that window.
And I, looking back in it, just my own experience, I was building websites, I was blogging, I was learning about SEO on the fly. There wasn't any real resources. I learned about, SEO just learning how PhotoBucket worked. And, I wasn't worried about page structure, and I wasn't worried about keywords, and I was just going to town. I was just posting up pictures, and I learned how PhotoBucket worked, and all of a sudden all these things clicked, and I started to see these patterns. But I look back now, and I see the building blocks of what was happening, and I was not aware back then.
No, yeah, I feel like there's a lot of catch up people were playing around that time just to understand, because things were, it felt like a slow grind over a time period, but I think that those big buckets were coming into play that were moving fast, and everybody was trying to figure out what was going to be the dominant player in the space. So at the time, you had to kind of just try it out, a little bit of everything.
That's exactly right. Everything was so new, and I don't want to say that the old channels were dying off fast, because it wasn't like the yellow pages just went away, and it wasn't like print media just went away. But I mean, they kind of did, but it was slow, but everything was so new and everything was so fast, and it almost became like channels became trendy. Like MySpace was popping for about 2 years, and then it wasn't. And then Facebook was popping, and then Instagram was popping, but you had to have an iPhone to be on Instagram. But then Meta bought Instagram, and then you could have it on Android, and it was just like, it was so, you really had to be on top of your P's and Q's during that era, because everything was evolving so fast, and everything was so trendy about where everybody was hanging out at, and where you could connect with people at in those channels.
Yeah. Do you think that's maybe on and off topic? Do you think that's still trendy? People are still following trends now?
Oh, it's definitely still very trendy now, where people are at, where you can find them.
Yeah.
Is it TikTok? Is it Instagram? Is it, what is the new app of the moment that they're on?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's, I don't think, it's just staying ahead of the curve, having relevance, because then you have to build an identity in that space.
I think, like you're saying, like, I don't think Google's going to kill, the directory model overnight, or they didn't kill it overnight. It was a slow burn, like we're saying. And so AI is not going to kill search engines overnight, but there is a change happening. And I think we're all trying to recognize like behavior shifting, following the behavior and the trend. And then those platforms kind of realize, oh, the behavior is moving this way and the trend is going this way. So how do we also get on board with that and continue to move? So I think that's kind of what's going on now, but it's a similar pattern to before. It's just humans are the same. We're still doing the same thing, but the shifts in technology and how sales are happening.
Yeah. No, you're right. So let's jump forward to today. All right. So if we're sitting in a room with a room full of retailers, and they think they have their head around SEO, they're running Google ads, they understand search traffic.
Yep.
And now we're telling them that the game is changing again. How do we tell them that without them just tuning out? Because I feel this is a space that people need to start understanding.
I agree. I think much like before, I'm sure in that same time period when Google was taking off and people were like, yeah, but I'm paying $800 in my newspaper and getting traffic through my front door. It's doing the same thing again. And so those retailers are going to have to listen and pay attention and want to make those changes, but they get ahead of the curve and act now. So Google's model, just crawling the web, indexing pages and ranking them, LLMs are going to work differently in the same space. So we're going to need to follow that model. And I think a lot of retailers are going to be like fatigued and annoyed at another change, but I think that's just the nature of doing business, is getting ahead of that curve, following that trend and trying to get there before everybody else in a big box state does. So specialty retailers, I think specifically, are targeted in a really good position for that. So making sure you're following that trend and getting ahead of the curve and like learning what you need to learn now in order to be the most relevant in a year from now.
Yeah, and I think that's what's advantageous here that we'll probably touch on here a little bit as this conversation evolves, is that that I hope that people understand and take away from this conversation is that this new environment that's coming out, if you understand it, it's highly advantageous for the independent. Somebody who can, have a blog out there, who has control of their Instagram, who's making video content, who has control over their website and can create and unify all this content together to come together as like one voice of continuity. So let's talk about the actual difference here. What are LLMs doing that's fundamentally different from the way Google index pages, ranks links, and sends traffic to your website?
Absolutely. I think, touching on what you just said, retailers in the past have figured out how Google works and you're paying for that. And that's what you're doing. So you're looking at the ways to optimize Google, crawling the web, they index pages, they ranked pages based on links, keywords, authority, and they send traffic, right? So you're buying traffic to that thing, or Google is sending organic. So an LLM is going to work totally different than that. It's going to use that as a piece of the puzzle, but it's looking at natural language. It's AI's interpreting what you're asking, not just the keywords you're putting on the page. It's searching for relevant information across multiple sources, and then it cross-references all of those. That's the hard part. We can get into more detail on that. It assembles an answer in line right there within a chat thread. So I did this over the weekend. I was looking for like a random part for a washing machine, took a picture of it, threw it into ChatGPT specifically and said, I need to identify what this thing is. And it's giving me answers on the spot and links to sources to go buy that item. So it's looking across web to find these multiple sources and pull in line to give me a response. Way different than Google, that's just a single page website authority by somebody who's paid for backlinks in the past.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. It's a hefty shift.
So I keep coming back to this. Google replaced listings with intent. You're saying LLMs are replacing results with reasoning.
It's a good way to say that. It's a good shift.
That's the right way to think about it?
Okay. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's consistency across multiple sources, not just do you have the right words on your webpage, but do all these sources also have consistency in the reasoning across?
So let's talk about where discovery actually happens now, because I think most retailers are still operating, like it's 2015, where if you weren't on Google's first page, you didn't exist, and I think customers are going to start finding retailers in a different way. And I don't mean that they're eventually going to convert. I mean, where they're discovering them. How is that happening?
Yeah. You said it right there with a website and having the correct keywords and somebody buying backlinks to seeing more traffic. Like that's how people were discovering things before. I think now discovering is totally fragmented and it's not just a single place. So for a retailer, a customer is going to discover a ski shop through multiple channels all at the same time, which is interesting. I just realized this is like pre-marketing years ago where it's like, hey, they need to see multiple things in multiple places, a billboard, print, that kind of thing. But they're going to see you on Instagram through some social discovery. They're going to search best ski shops near me through Google. They're going to ask GPT, where should I get fitted for ski boots in Colorado through AI? They're going to see your shop mentioned in a forum or on Reddit. They're going to see Google reviews. And then they're going to check TikTok for somebody random, who's recommending this. All of these things are happening at the same time and influencing a buyer's decision. So it's not just one channel. I think it's all layered together. And AI is reading all of that if somebody's in an AI chat thread to pull it all together.
So it's cumulative. It's going out, whereas before it was all this authoritative backlinking, and it could be hokey backlinking, it could be paid backlinks, it could be all this other stuff. But now it just seems like there's a deeper layer of authenticity that's going to be brought to the surface. Is that about right?
Yeah, it's not just one thing. It's a cumulative layering now. So being visible means being a part of like the coherent, bigger picture across everywhere on the web. So in old world ranking #1 for Google, you can get first clicked and you've won the game now. But now a customer is going to see you in all these 5 to 10 different places. And that's going to be a cumulative approach to everything.
So what does being visible even mean when answers are being assembled from 6 different sources instead of clicked from one blue link?
Yes, I do think that's where things get interesting. Like LLMs don't index in the same way that Google indexes things, but they do have pattern recognition. So for LLMs, they're looking at thousands of data points about a single retailer or question that comes up. So what does your website say? What do your reviews say? How do you describe yourselves on social? What do other forums, so other people are saying about you? In any specific product pages you have and just your expertise on that subject. So being a subject matter expert as well. And then what do you talk about in your content? So LLMs are going to rank all these things differently. And I think they're kind of looking for 3 or 4 big things. They want to see consistency across all of these. They want to see repetition, clarity, and a real understanding about what you're talking about. Not just the fact that you have the keywords, but do you know what you're talking about ski boot fitting, for example?
Right, so let's get into the machine's perspective for a minute, because I think this is where a lot of retailers are going to get lost. They're still thinking like humans trying to game the algorithm. How does an LLM actually understand a retailer? What is it looking for?
Yep. It's a good question. It's very different than Google and it's broad. LLM's looking for thousands of different data points and where you exist all across the web. So what does your website say? What do reviews say? Where are you described on social platforms? What do other forums say about you? So what do other people say? Do you have product pages? What about those descriptions and the expertise shown there? And then how are you talking about your own content? So LLMs are looking for patterns and consistency across all of these things to show consistency and truth, I guess is the right thing. So that there's a foundation of, these things are a pattern recognition across all platforms said by other people or said by the internal retailer. So consistency, repetition, clarity, and then just real understanding, being a subject matter expert and putting that out. So in SEO, you're optimizing by putting keywords in the right places and backlinks, and you're following a formula. LLM's optimization is actually kind of counterproductive on the website piece that we just talked about. AI can sense when you're trying to game the system. So when content is written for the algorithm instead of actual understanding, it gets a little confused. So what matters to LLMs is, does this person actually understand what they're talking about? So it's trying to be way more human than keyword readings and rankings. So being consistent everywhere is more important than any of the keywords on your current site.
Yeah.
So yeah, shift is optimizing, like stop optimizing the keyword stuff and just really start being clear about your message and what you do know and the knowledge you have.
So let's expand on that just a little bit here. Okay. So consistency matters more than optimization now.
Yep.
So
yes.
Let's unpack that, because that's completely backwards than most people are thinking right now.
Yep.
Everybody has been ingrained for the past, let's see, well, I was talking about 2009 earlier. So we're talking 16 years that we've had SEO drilled down our throat. So now we're talking about a much more intelligent environment that is going to be able to identify authentic patterns at a high level with accuracy. And
Yeah, which is kind of scary, but good. Like, it's way more reality. You think about it, even though we're talking about AI. So you just asked about consistency. So I'll go to an example that's helpful, right? If your website says, like, keyword is expert boot fitter for ski boots, but your reviews on Google say they didn't help me with my fit at all. The AI sees this contradiction, and that's a weak signal to AI. So we need to have both. If you say you're an expert boot fitter, your reviews need to say these guys really know what they're talking about when they fit my boots. So that consistency is picking up that pattern across platforms.
Yeah, there's no hiding.
I know it is scary because it's just real. And I'm like, I keep coming back to this and I'm thinking about our conversation today and it makes me break down my actual thoughts about stuff. And it's like, oh, AI just wants like reality. Even though we're talking about AI, which is hilarious, it's trained to pick up these patterns of reality of if this person says they're good at a thing, I need to go research to see if they're actually good at a thing and put that pattern together to say, yes, this is now a fact. And if they're not, it gets dropped lower in the rankings. So they're not going to pop up as a recommendation from AI.
Okay. So let's talk about time. All right. I know it probably takes about 2 weeks to get a page or a post or an article indexed and really in Google indexing entrenched into the system pretty good to start showing up in search results. What's the timeline here? You start making all these pivots on your website. You're making all these pivots by having consistency across all these channels. What are we thinking that the timeline is before these LLM results start to become effective for you, for the retail?
It's a good point. In a lot of ways, it's similar. But before you had these exact moments to start looking at, hey, we've updated our SEO. We've now pushed this on our website. We need Google crawlers to jump out there and crawl the sites. You kind of wait on that. And then you started measuring by quarter. So a couple quarters out, all right, is this doing what it should do? So answer engine optimization, if we want to get into AEO instead of SEO, is AI search relevance or whatever we're calling it. But operating on a similar timeline, it's somehow faster because the technology is newer. So it's compounding right now. So AEO is built on SEO foundations and it's not separate from them. So retailers should really expect similar timelines for AEO impact to go into place, just based on it's built on similar foundations. So they're not separate, but they're just different. So you have to take a slightly different approach to why you're doing what you're doing. You're building authority patterns, coherence, consistency across platform. And that doesn't really happen fast. We're talking about getting reviews and making sure the review is the same as what you're already saying on your site. So making sure those patterns happen over time is really important. So you're building a foundation now.
Yeah. Good operating procedures across all your channels should be the basis of really building a solid platform, I guess, basically, for lack of a better phrase. But I do want to note here, if you already have good structure in place, this isn't anything that's going to be earth-shattering for you. If you already have good page structure in place, if you already have good site structure in place, if you are already posting videos and you're on Instagram and you have consistent messaging, there isn't a bunch of gaming of the system going on across your channels, you will evolve into these LLM searches and landscapes pretty easily. Is that pretty safe to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a subtle shift in if you're already doing all of these things that for SEO and you're really trying to be well-rounded in your digital presence, I guess. It's really a subtle shift in all of these areas to make sure there's consistency for pattern recognition across all of them, not just kind of the individual channel is this performing well and is this performing well, but are they also consistent across? So I think the timeline is about the same and you're probably okay. You just need to start really focusing on that shift in there.
Yeah, All right, let's expand the view on the horizon, okay? let's take it from like short-term view here, and let's talk about this as being a long-term strategy shift in how we are pivoting around in the way we're executing all of these structure channels that we're executing for our stores. All right. So it's not a campaign. It's not a Q1 initiative. This is a relevance pivot. Is that correct?
Yeah, I like saying that. Relevance. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So it just sounds like, you want to make sure that you are across your channels, whether it's your website, any blogging that you do, any Reddit promoting that you do, Instagram, YouTube, relevant messaging as to
Yeah.
what it is that you do and why you're the expert at it. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that LLMs are looking for alignment across all of your platforms. So if you've got standard what a lot of businesses have, and you might be missing a couple of things you could focus on if you're a smaller retailer, but a website, your content or blog, reviews, social presence, product data or catalog, whatever you're doing for your specific sales, and then any third party references to you. An LLM is looking for all of these layers to tell the same story. So if they are, you're coming across really strong. If not, that's a weak LLM signal because they're recognizing inconsistency in all these different areas. The reviews don't line up to what they're actually saying or vice versa. So we're looking for, you don't want any contradictions, or that weakens the overall LLM trust on if this is worth following or not. So consistency across strengthens everything, strengthens confidence to help your overall business be more relevant and show up in AEO search.
Yeah. So broad layer preference. I like that term. I think that's a much better position to be in than be everywhere all the time.
Yeah. I think that sounds like a much more specific way to say it. It's not just like do everything, hurry up and get there fast. But yeah, broad layering specifics will create that consistency everywhere. I like that.
So these broad layers that we've identified, let's review real quick. All right. What we're talking about here in broad layers. All right. Website, blog content, product descriptions, FAQs, reviews, social posts, third-party mentions. LLMs are looking for alignment across these layers. All right. And I want to just hit the rewind button here real quick and talk about FAQs because I think this is the first mention that we've had in this. And I don't think people really understand how impactful these FAQs are. Dropping these on pages. Again, authentic relevance, not some nonsense FAQs, like real deal, tactile, frequently asked questions, whether they're from customers or real, questions, that are helpful. If you can get some depth going on your site of highly relevant FAQs, it's worth its weight in gold. We, on Anonymous Retailer, I want to say back in May, I started dropping FAQs on each page that were just relevant to the topic that we were blogging about. Huge, highly underrated windfall after I started implementing just that tiny little pivot. And these are all just little pivots that you can make on your website or whatever it is, whether it's a blog, whether it's your website. These are just tiny little pivots that you can make that will start pulling in these algorithms to start chewing up your site. And this broad layer list that I just laid out are definitely things you want to look at. So let's talk about the other side of it. What happens when these layers start contradicting each other? When your website says one thing and your reviews say another, and your social posts say something else entirely. I think you kind of touched on that earlier, but let's get a little deeper in here in what happens when there isn't consistency across all of these layers.
Yeah, I think we've broad touched a second ago, but that consistency is inconsistency is going to weaken trust to an LLM, and the consistency across those will strengthen the confidence that an LLM will say, yes, this is true. We should put this at the top because the consistency across these platforms. So super important. I think very good on the FAQs as well, but like UGC and reviews, are going to help with the consistency of all those touch points to really help strengthen that confidence.
So is it fair to say that the deeper this alignment gets, the deeper your approval in the LLM gets, if that's an accurate term?
Yeah, I would say trust, but yes, the approval. It's kind of the same thing. It's like
trust.
It's building trust. It's like it's storing data and saying, can we trust that all of this data is accurate? And the more that it finds these touch points being consistent with each other, the higher the trust ranking goes. So the higher it goes into, we should promote this to other people because of the consistency across. So it's critical to get all of those, the depth correct.
So what about current content? You think does it matter that it all aligns? Do you need to go back and update all of your current content to align with this new system? I got a lot of work to do. That's
a good one.
I got to go back and update a lot of blog posts.
I know. I was like, if somebody said yes to that, I'm like, wow, that's a lot. That's like changing the internet. We have to change the internet now. No, I still think things are built off of the SEO patterns and what Google.
Yeah,
built.
that kind of goes back to my statement earlier.
Yeah.
I think if you have good SEO structure already, and you're just starting to build new content on top of this, I think you're going to be okay. I'm just going to tell myself that so I don't have to go back and update a bunch of
I mean, there
blogs.
might be a few that are like, if you have some weird blog posts out there that have nothing to do with what you're actually selling or promoting now, because you're like a different business and that existed in 2008, it might be relevant to drop a few of those that just really don't matter, but you should do that anyway. That's just SEO search there.
Yeah. Good call. All right. So we've talked about expertise, authority, and trust already, but let's just go ahead and address that elephant in the room, because that's really, what's been drilled down everybody's throat for the past decade and a half. And it feels like these LLMs and all of this AEO optimization, it's just expertise, authority on steroids.
Yeah.
Does that framework still matter in a AI search world, or is this a reset? Which I think I already know the answer to that, but I'm going to let you air it out.
Yeah. I mean, that would be interesting if it was a total reset. Everybody being a lot of hurt right now, but
it'd be bad for business. I think that would be bad for business for everybody. If they're like, let's just pull the plug out and everybody has to start over.
That'd be like getting rid of the internet and being like, let's see what happens. So I mean, it still matters now. It actually matters, way more now in an AI world, but it means something totally different, I think, than what search has traditionally meant. So experience meant you should have credentials. Expertise meant get mentioned by important websites because they would say you're the expert, another site would. Authority meant get more backlinks. So trust meant high domain rating. I think moving forward, the EAT is simpler to understand because we already talked about just being authentic and being real. Experiences, and I think what sets up kind of the specialty retailer to be in a perfect position for this is you've already done the work. You are experienced. You fit the boots. You understand customers. You sit with them. You see the problems and the solutions. And that's just real experience. You already have that. Expertise, you explain the details of the boot fitting. You understand clearly and consistently how to do that. It's not fancy. It's just you are the expert. So there is authority. You show up as credible source across all these platforms and not from backlinks, but legitimately across multiple locations, saying the same thing, building trust. So you're consistent, you're clear, you admit what you don't know. You're like, don't be a bike shop if you're a ski shop, unless you're both. But trust is built through that credibility across all of those places. So I think that, the specialty retailers are already doing the hard part because you already have all these answers. It's just making sure you're consistent everywhere when we're doing that. So AI isn't like rewarding the polish of that. It's rewarding the credibility. If you can get that in all of those places, you become more credible with more trust. And that's what AI and LLMs will reward.
I'll tell you one business that this new horizon is going to put out of business is the syndicated review business.
Yeah.
I don't know, like this mic, I got this new Shure mic last week. All right. If we were to go on Google right now and look this Shure mic up, all of the Google shopping reviews would be syndicated reviews from Shure, And I find
Yep.
whenever I'm shopping for something now, like I go through and I'm trying to find the store that has the authentic reviews. Like you can pull up the Google shopping, the 5 or 6 items that sit at the top of the page, and it's a 99% chance every single one of them is going to have the exact same review across them, because they're just syndicating the review off of the vendor's website. And I just want to be clear, this is a big core concept of what we're talking about for everybody that's going to listen to this. Like the LLMs, AEO, at the core of it is hyper authenticity. You don't want to be a part of that. It's looking for you to create a unique environment and amplify the effectiveness and the uniqueness of your environment. And syndicated reviews being rehashed from the vendor is not unique to an experience to your retail store. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that it's an interesting place to be, where if you have 100 reviews, but 90 of them are like syndicated, not authentic reviews, versus a specialty retailer that has 10 reviews only that are really good, or not just good reviews, but like quality, and people have depth of that consistency is going to rank you higher in an LLM than just having something that says the same thing a lot, where Google rewards that.
Quality over quantity matters in this
Absolutely.
environment.
Yep.
And if anybody takes anything away from this, and we'll pull this together here at the end, but like you really want to focus in this channel of really just amplifying your unique story, because you're gonna connect with people that are looking for something unique. And I think that, I'm of the opinion that I'm excited about this new environment, because I think it's going to bring a more unique experience to the surface, especially in a local environment, for people to be able to thrive and survive in. Everything, I don't know. I mean, I buy a lot of music equipment. The music retail landscape is very homogenous, and that's happening more and more across the landscape. It's like when I'm looking for a bass guitar, I'm left-handed. All right. I can't find a bass guitar at Guitar Center, at the local music shop, because they don't really stock left-handed basses. Now, there is a guy here, I'll give him a shout out. There's a guy here in Houston called Southpaw Guitars. He only stocks left-handed guitars. And if you want a good left-handed guitar, you got to go to see this guy, because he has got all of the awesome guitars that you can't see anywhere, and a unique experience like that is going to thrive, and that's really what that's what this environment is about. It's about being able to tell your story and amplify it through consistency. That's all it takes, is consistency, just consistency of the process, and across the channels that you're working in.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point with that. I mean, even looking at left-handed bass guitars, right? It sets up the smaller mom and pop type shops to actually come back to the surface, where for years Google killed all the rankings and everybody could just buy their rankings. And now it's looking for authenticity. And so LLMs are going to reward some of the smaller shops that have consistency across all the different social channels they should be on, and bubble that to the surface and bring down some of the big ones, because they already know that answer. And a lot of that you're saying is syndicated reviews, not as authentic. So you're going to start to see recommendations of just authentic reviews for local places that are nearby, because of the consistency across platform. I think it brings a little more of a level playing field, where I think a lot of people think AI is going to like take over the world. But I think in a lot of ways it's helping level things for some, especially for retailers.
Yeah, I think this is going to level the playing field for those that are going to take the time to learn how to use the system. I think they will have a lot of leverage. Okay, and I want to touch back to our earlier conversation where I was talking about that trajectory of 2006 to 2009, where I was really able to amplify my business because I dug in and I learned about like how SEO worked, and I was using this blog and I was using PhotoBucket to really expand the trajectory of my business, and it was working, and that's kind of the environment that we're in right now. Okay. So we had MySpace knocked out the local newspaper. Okay. And then you had Google come in and Facebook come in, and they kind of knocked out MySpace. Tom got sold, whoever bought him. And then, you had Google come in and edge out the yellow pages, and so that's kind of, even though the players are the same, you still have Google in the mix, Facebook's in the mix. You've got all these other AI players in the mix now. But what's happening is that the traditional SEO, the traditional SEO skill sets that we relied on are going to start getting edged out. And it's, the pay to play, all the fake backlinks, all the stuffing, the keyword stuffing, all of this stuff is going to get pushed out, and real authenticity is going to get pushed up to the top. And so if somebody who is an independent retailer out there really takes the time, because it's not, we're not talking about hard stuff here. We're just talking about aligning your messaging consistently across the channels that you use, and you will start to bubble up slowly but surely. You will start to bubble up, and you will start to see whether it's web traffic, foot traffic, you'll start popping up in these LLM search results.
Absolutely.
So let's see what we got here. I got on my soapbox there for a minute. Sorry.
I know, man. No, that's good. I was almost going to say, like, hey, keep going with that, because I think we both have, like, in the middle of this podcast, we kind of get in the weeds a little bit about details, and it's not the sexy thing to talk about, but it needs to be addressed. And then you get back into, like, now where you get passionate and you get a soapbox, because there's the real reason why we're talking about it is the excitement of leveling the playing field again for the small guy or the not so big box, right? As long as you are taking action now to get there. And that I think you and me are both passionate about, because like we both run businesses and been like, how do we do this? And it's exciting to help out not just the big box, but help out everybody.
It's about giving something exciting and something creative a fighting chance, and I think that I really think that it'll be effective for these people out here that are doing unique retail. There's some cool retail out there, but it's hard to find. It gets drowned out by all of this pay-to-play SEO business.
Yeah, just like he who has the most money wins kind of thing. And hopefully that starts to go away some.
I'm excited to see what will be brought to the surface over the next few years as this layer starts to wave in, as this tide of this new type of search starts to roll in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, let's get practical here. All right. So some retailers that are listening to this, we've piqued their interest. They're going to go after it. All right. They're curious. They're going to start watching YouTube videos about it, which good luck. If you find some good content that is about the channel that we are talking about here from the retailer's perspective outwardly, how to be effective in the AI landscape, please ping me a message. You can hit me on Instagram. You could drop a comment here. I've been digging around. That was the whole purpose that I wanted to do this episode, was because there's really not anything out there. And I'm not an expert. I'm just a guy who's blogging in my spare bedroom and tinkering around because I like to tinker around with SEO and websites and stuff like that. And I've stumbled upon this whole LLM world, and it's sending a lot of traffic my way because I learned how to start structuring my blogs to accommodate that environment. And we already had sound SEO structure in place. I was already making the effort to have a consistent message out across all of my channels. And so I understand how effective it can be at a small scale. So anybody that's listening to this that's out there, you can be impactful. What are we in? February? 8 months. 8 months. You can completely change. You can completely change the amount of traffic that you're getting through your website by just making small pivots. That some of them that we have talked about today, if you're not already making them. So
when you just happen to say 8 months, and I was like, you're setting it up for right before Black Friday? Not intentionally, but February to 8 months.
Yeah, that's
Get some
perfect
traffic for the
timing for
holidays.
next.
Yeah,
Exactly. Perfect timing for next holidays business. Yep.
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I did that. I didn't even mean to do that.
I know. You just work on Black Friday fiscal years.
All right. So this is Jason's list. All right. This is the things that work for me that I'm going to share with you guys. Okay. I have found this to be effective. I'm not going to lie, full transparency here. I shared this list with Justin and he agreed with me on the list. And he's the expert. I am not. And so I was pretty excited when he told me that he agreed with my list.
I wrote down some details and examples why, so we can help define your list too. So it's not just ideas.
So here's 5 things that I pulled together that you should be implementing into your what we are now going to call AEO toolkit. All right. Number 1, clearly define what you're an expert in. Be meaningfully specific and say it consistently. You got any thoughts on that,
Absolutely.
Justin?
Yeah. I mean, totally agree. All of these are solid. So I wrote them down and I was like, yes, how do I help explain this? Because it sounds very obvious. Clearly define what you're an expert in and then say it consistently. So kind of that's where everything starts. You have to be specific. So an example, I've been using Ski Shop because I managed Ski Shop for years. And so it's just easy to be specific about that type. Let's say instead of we're a ski shop, say we specialize in boot fitting for experienced skiers with technical terrain preference. Like get really specific and then make sure you're saying that all over the place. Or we specialize in mountain bikes for downhill racing. Don't just say we do mountain bikes or we are the best ski shop. That doesn't rank anywhere. LLMs don't know how to read that. There's no trust in it. Doesn't know what best means. It's looking to define that. So get really consistent with saying who exactly you are and who you're selling to.
Yeah. All right. So let me just add a couple of more layers to that onion. Okay.
Yeah.
So clearly defining what you're an expert in. That's step 1. Okay. Number 2 and number 3, you have to execute on that. It's one thing to put it out there, to put it out into the ether, Number 2, you need to execute on it, and then you need to get people talking about it. All right. And I'm gonna back up here because that be meaningfully specific and say it consistently. That is a stolen quote from a master marketer named Seth Godin. And if you guys are wanting to do a crash course in meaningfully specific, consistent messaging, Seth has a ton of books out there. He has a ton of YouTube content out there. You should definitely go down the rabbit hole of what this guy is talking about, because you will definitely have a clear image and a clear concept of what that means. And one of his core tenets that he talks about that I kind of touched on there, and unwittingly I did 2 Seth Godins in there and I didn't even know it, is that be meaningfully specific and execute on it and let your customers talk about it. It's the most impactful marketing that you can get. And we talk about that a lot on the blog. Your top 3 marketing resources that a retailer has is their the assortments they carry, the quality of the staff in their store, and the customer experience at their store, and let the customer talk about it. And that will tie right back to number 1, by you clearly defining what you're an expert in, and let the customer talk about it and let them hype you up. That number 1 right there, and you'll have one leg in. So number 2, shift from promotional content to explanatory content. What do you think about that?
I totally agree. It makes me laugh because we haven't talked about this, but one of my clients right now, we talk about this a lot because he is sales guy all the way, and he can't, in his marketing, he can't get away from selling. He's always thinking about, if I say this, then I can sell them this other thing. But I think we need to stop selling in everything we're saying and start teaching. So instead of promotional, buy our boots, premium quality, best value, get into the details of explanatory. Here's how you know if your boots fit right. Here's what you should feel. And here's what you should be checking when you are doing your boot fit. Because explaining, AI will understand that problem, and promotion, it doesn't. So it's going to see that you want money is the end goal of promotion, but it doesn't show that you're the authority in a specific space and that they can trust what you're saying. So make sure you are switching into explaining what you do and how you do it and why you're the best, not or for the customer, not just promoting buy now, discount. So I think those can get worked in, but I think you need to shift it to
we've unintentionally waded into some unreleased anonymous retailer content, and it's a term that I have called informational pressure. It's the best-selling pressure that can be found, and basically it just sums up everything you just said, and it comes back to number one. The best selling is informational selling. You want to be an information source. I 100% agree with number two. And if you know how to informationally sell, I can tell you, I've been doing this 32 years now, a long time. I'm an old dog now, man. Damn. I've been at this a while. I will tell you that the best customer experience that I've had working with customers is when the customer leaves informed, and it's the best type of selling. So informational pressure. Okay, keep the customer informed. It's not high pressure. It's not sleazeball pressure. It's not coupon pressure. It's informational pressure. And it can't be denied. If you are the information source, it can't be denied. The LLM cannot deny accurate information, and that's the position you want to be in. So you line that up with your clearly defined identity as the expert in your space, and you back that up with informational pressure. You got 2 of the 5 knocked out already. So number 3, I touched on this earlier. Build FAQs from real customer questions. All right. These are real world questions that customers with issues are having.
Yep. I think you've kind of said it in number 1 and 2 when you've summarized those up is informational pressure. Informational selling is listen to what people are actually asking, not just in store, but through emails, social comments, phone calls. What are they actually trying to get at? And then answer that through your content. So not generic, be specific, and that will consistently create you as the expert because you know all the information and you're giving it back to them. LLMs will recognize that for why are my new boots hurting my feet? And how long does it take to break in boots? How much do you charge for fitting? Be specific on all of that. Answering come in the shop is not exact answer that LLM is going to work with, but you're building a real solid FAQ system that they will read as trust and continue to build authority in the LLM space as consistent trust answers. Answer what people are actually want to know, and it'll show AI that you actually know the answers to these problems people are seeking. That'll show consistency across.
Yeah. All right. Number 4, eliminate contradictions across platforms. That just comes down to uniformity. Just make sure you're executing the same message across your platforms, that the tone, the voice, everything is consistent across all the platforms that you're using, whether it's 2 platforms, 4 platforms, 52 platforms. Make sure they all sound the same, make sure they all look the same, make sure they all convey the same message, and that's, we want them all, they're all soldiers out there working for you. And you want them all to be speaking the same voice.
Yeah, I think we've kind of touched on this throughout the whole conversation, but it's not being perfect. It's just making sure that everything is telling the same story about your brand. And then AI will begin to trust that story because it sees it consistently everywhere. So if you have any heavy contradictions, obviously we talked about a blog post earlier that was, if it's talking about selling something you don't sell, maybe you should cut some of that, prune some old stuff. But just tell the same story everywhere, and that will build trust with an LLM as it searches through your site and the rest of the internet.
All right, number 5, think in systems, not posts. All right, so go ahead, and then I'll air my thoughts out.
Yeah, I was like, I want to hold back because that's like that. I love systems, and that's how I run a business. Right? It's building systems that compound on each other over time. So not just I'm going to post on Instagram 3 times this week, but change that to how does all my content reinforce each other? So a blog
Exactly.
post about boot fitting hits your FAQs about how a fit is supposed to work. There's a social post about that. It's customer emails that are going out about expert boot fitting. And that becomes part of a YouTube video that informs product descriptions later. Now you have multiple sources saying all the same thing. And that's a full system. That's not, I did my posts, check, social media done this week. It's building a system that all of these things reinforce each other. And then LLM will pick up on that as trust building over time.
I didn't even have to say anything, and we agreed. That's pretty good.
Boom.
That's good. That makes me feel good. I've been doing my homework.
Yeah.
I was going to say the same thing as the experts. So I've been hitting the books hard. So I'm feeling good.
Good, man. Love it. That's the is your brand telling the same story everywhere, and then make sure they all talk to each other to say the same story. It's one of what we were saying earlier of like, it's just authenticity and being real. So kind of funny.
All right. So
seems too simple.
Which of these 5, all right, which one creates the fastest compounding effect once they actually commit to it?
Resist. I'm trying to think of like versus fastest compounding. Most resistance is probably number 2, some shifting from promotional to explanatory, because retailers are going to feel like you need to sell. Obviously, like you're in the business to make money to sell. So it's a hard shift internally to say, if I'm not selling, then nobody's going to buy. But teaching will build that trust. I think the fastest compounding thing is just eliminating any contradictions. That's the fastest thing you can do, because you're just cutting stuff. You don't have to like do new things, so that you have no contradictions in the story your brand is telling online and across all these locations. I think that's going to be the fastest compounding thing.
Which one do you think they'll resist the most? Which one do I think?
You agree?
Yeah, I'm with you on the eliminate contradictions, because it tightens everything up. You know, if you can, like I'm going to have to do now that we've gone through this. And
now that we're talking about it. Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to sleep at night, because I'm going to have to.
I keep thinking of all the stuff I need to do now from this blog post. And I'm like, all right, I have to go fix this and this and this now that we're talking about it. And
I've got to tighten it up, because I've got some contradictions hanging out there.
I definitely do.
I'm not feeling right about it. So I think I agree with you there. I mean, that's kind of like, when your slug is out of alignment with your keyword strategy, you got to go back and fix that. Otherwise, it's just not going to work.
That's a good point.
You know, so you've got to get the contradictions lined up.
That's a good modern day analogy for sure.
For the for the whole thing to really, that's the glue, right? You know, that's the glue, you know, the consistency of the messaging that we've talked about across all the channels. So this is the one that I've been waiting on. Of those 5, which one do retailers resist the most?
I jumped into that one a second ago, and it's still like, obviously it makes me think of one of my clients right now. And he knows it. He says it to me before I say it to him. He's like, am I just trying to sell stuff again? And I'm like, yes, you're selling stuff. Stop selling and just explain knowledge to people. And then you will become the authority to build trust to an LLM, but also to humans that are going to your website. But if they're going to an LLM first, they're going to get that knowledge from that LLM. So make sure you're shifting from just the promotional, buy now, click here to get this thing, and get into explanatory, because teaching is what builds the trust, and then trust will drive sales over time.
Okay. I that was not the one that I picked. I went with number 5.
Where'd you go with?
I think in systems, not posts. I think this is going to be a tricky one for retailers, you know, because they're not thinking like this. They're not thinking about the landscape. They're thinking about their website.
Yep.
You know, and
I think a lot of software and SaaS companies think this way, and I'm in that space heavily as well. And so that's why I probably didn't pick this. But in retail, I totally agree with what you're saying of like, this is another area of resisting because it's not how you commonly think.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be the area that may be the tricky. I could be wrong. There may be some people that are going to listen to this and be like, dude, I got this. And be like, okay, that's great. But I think that's going to be the hang up for most specialty retailers, is that thinking in systems, not posts, you know, not thinking about just the item page, not thinking about just the blog post. You got to think about the whole ecosystem and how this blog post is going to work with the YouTube content, how it's going to line up with Instagram. How does this line up with FAQs? How does this line up with customer reviews, and you've got to think about this whole environment
Yep.
versus just that single page.
Yep. I agree. I guess I thought about the resist of, I think it's a hard mindset shift not to just talk about the details, but maybe if retailers are used to writing a product page, it's just the details of the product. It's not necessarily selling. So that's a little bit different. But that's why I went into the resisting just trying to sell everything all the time.
I mean, I think you bring up a good point talking about a product page, because that's really, that's a big thing with these LLMs. LLMs are looking for uniqueness on these product pages. If you're just copy and pasting copy from the vendor, you're going to get dinged. You're going to lose some points.
Yep.
Yeah,
because it's already on the vendor page,
LLMs,
which they already know.
The LLM is looking for new, unique information, and if there's any message that you take from this whole conversation is the LLMs are looking for uniqueness, coming back to clearly defined uniqueness. Why are you different?
Yep.
Why, what are you doing different than these 5,000 other retailers that all have all this aggregated information? What are you doing? And then how does that align up with what the customer is saying out in the space? And that's the precision that I think we're going to start seeing coming up in search results here before long. And I'm talking beyond product. So I'm just talking local markets. If you're a candle shop in your town, how can you become the voice of being the candle store in your town to go to? And that what we've talked about today is a great roadmap of how to dominate that space without letting these big out of town players come in and encroach on you.
Yep. Yeah. Or build back up for what's been encroached on in the past 15 plus years,
Yeah. All right. So I don't want this conversation to feel like a bunch of doom and gloom. Like, that specialty retailers are, behind the times. Again, just touching back on what we talked about earlier, if you already have good structure in place, you've got good site structure in place, you've got good relevance in place across channels, you're not behind the times. There's just some minor pivots that need to be made moving forward. So what do specialty retailers do better than anyone else that positions them to win an AI search environment? That's something that I think about.
Yeah. You and me have both worked in specialty retail. And so it's hits home for us. And we're talking about like kind of the smaller mom and pops or not just a big box. But I'd say specialty retailers have kind of three big things that a big box can't replicate, or not as often. Deep expertise in whatever that is that you're selling, customer relationships, and then just clear positioning. So not just competing on price, but you don't have to compete on that alone. You can compete on expertise, clarity, relationships, and AI rewards those systems.
Yeah, that's it. If you can learn these tools, like I touched on earlier, if you can learn these tools and you learn how to execute them, you will be highly effective in the space. This isn't a system that can be gamed like the keyword stuffing, the link building. You're not going to be able to buy backlinks in the LLM environment. Yeah. The LLM environment rewards authenticity. And so as long as you're showing up every day and moving with authenticity and executing with authenticity and making the customer happy through authenticity, the LLMs will amplify that as long as you're able to convey that authenticity consistently across your channels.
Yep. Yeah, I think that like the mindset shift was hard is stop. How do you stop thinking, how do I get traffic, which previously buying, and start thinking in how do I explain what I know better, more consistently across? So making that shift is the hard part, but I think that that's where you gain the advantage.
What's the one mindset shift that matters more than any other tool or tactic?
Yeah, I think we've hit on it, but we didn't break it down to a mindset specifically. And I think it's really this one shift in not thinking what you previously thought, which is how do I get traffic to my site? and start thinking, how do I explain what I know? I'm the expert in this area. How do I explain who I am and what I do better, right? So in a Google world, we're obsessed with rankings. In AI world, you're obsessed with clarity and clarity of what you know. So be clear on what you do, what you know, and then who you serve. And then the rest of the tools don't really matter. The tactics kind of don't matter. So that mindset shift there is everything. That's probably why I said resist earlier, which is resist in selling, and make sure you're talking about what you know, and that will build clarity and trust everywhere. So be coherent, be understanding across all platforms. Make that mental shift from just buying the traffic into getting out what I know in a consistent way. Coherent.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's not about let's take a sneaker boutique, for example. Okay, it's not about chasing the keywords surrounding the brand of sneakers that you sell in your store any longer. It's not about talking about the sneakers that you have in your store. It's about why you're the expert on those sneakers, and why people should come see you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the shift. That's the shift that matters. Okay, we're not strategically targeting keywords anymore. We're not strategically targeting, I say this loosely, we're not strategically targeting page structure as much anymore. Right? We're strategically targeting what we are the expert in and clearly amplifying it. We don't want to be in this pool of keyword sharks, that are chasing this, sneaker mania traffic. We want to be the unique one that's sticking out, telling the story of why we are unique and why you need to come to us.
Yeah. I think you stop spending money on the content that doesn't actually explain what you do. Like, don't just do content for content's sake. Make sure you're explaining your uniqueness. So be clear on the message, explain it well, say the same message everywhere. And I think that's where the ROI starts to build. LLMs start to trust those things and pull you to the top.
100%. Yeah, you touched on it. You touched on it, and that's what's going to be advantageous for a specialty retailer is that they don't have to pay. You just have to be unique to be effective. All right, we're rounding it out here, bud. So what should retailers stop doing immediately? What the things they've been spending time on right now that's actively working against them in this new environment?
Yeah, this landscape it's hard to make this shift because this has been pounded in your head. And I even still do this when I'm thinking about websites, but stop optimizing for keywords and stop trying to rank for every possible search term, or stop chasing trends and copying kind of the competitor tactics. So spending money on content that doesn't explain exactly what you do and what you know. So all of that was designed for Google. And it's, again, we're saying loosely, it still exists. So we're in this shifting period. But for AI, that's a waste. It is actually working against you. The AI is tracking to see that you're gaming the system by doing that, by backlinks and keywords and whatnot. But having a clear message explained well, said everywhere, the ROI compounds as LLMs continue to grow and people start to use LLMs for their main search engine. Already happening, but it's happening faster and faster. They're going to start to show that trust of you explaining the same story everywhere. So stop doing keywords. It's working against you. Start explaining everywhere the same story.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right. So we've talked about phone books, Google, LLMs. I'll throw MySpace in there. Honorable mention. All these shifts in how information gets accessed and assembled. When you think about where this goes next, not 5 years from now, but 18 months from now, what's the one thing you're certain about?
Yeah, I think that right now, especially retail space, retailers who move first will have a massive advantage. If you're doing everything we've talked about here, it's going to build and compound over time because you're building trust. It's as LLMs grow and pick up more in the space, they're going to learn more about the consistent story that your brand is telling and continue to trust that. And trust will be the number one thing, not keyword rankings and backlinks that you've paid for in the past. So moving now to get ahead of that curve and watch things compound. I mean, it's like compounding interest if you got a savings account, or high yield savings, I'll say. You can watch that compound faster. And I think that's the goal here. And it's going to work in the same way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Right? I just, my closing thought here is that, it's open air right now. And the retailers that are going to win are the retailers that take this serious.
Yeah.
The old school way of thinking that we've been dealing with SEO for the past 16 years, it's not going to be relevant in 18 months. There's a whole new world that's going to be rolling in, and the people that are taking this serious now, that are learning about this and understanding how to pivot into it, they're going to be the winners down the road.
Yeah, I think right now, specialty retailers have an unfair advantage. If you understand your market, you have the real expertise because you are specialty. You're niche down. So you have the customer relationships that big boxes don't necessarily have. Take that advantage and explain clearly and consistently, and then you'll get ahead of this curve. So the AI era won't replace the retail expertise. It'll help amplify it for whoever explains the most clearly what they're doing. So that can be your shop, but you've got to move on it now, or else the bigger ships that are harder to turn will catch up to you eventually and start doing the same thing.
Yeah. All right. So for the retailers out there who are skeptical about this, they're out there. There's some negative Nancys out there that think this is hocus pocus. What's your message to them?
I think I just said this in reverse, but it's still the same. Move quick because you have an unfair advantage now. You are the expert. That's why you niche down, and that's why we are saying the term specialty retail exists. You're not big box, so you have this clear advantage that you can get ahead, and it will amplify your message, and whoever explains it the most clearly, it's not going to do that for big box stores. So it won't replace this retail expertise. It's just going to amplify you and your message if you can explain that clearly across the platforms we've laid out here. So you'll create urgency without panic and position expertise as value. And it's going to give confidence to you, but also to an LLM, and get you more relevant in the space because of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So my thought on that is AI doesn't replace retail expertise. It's just, you touched on it. It's going to amplify whoever explains that expertise most clearly, and that's, there is going to be people who are resistant to this, and it's going to be unfortunate for them because I think they're going to see that the landscape is going to be completely different quicker than it was before.
Yeah.
When we were talking about, from the newspaper print to MySpace to Google taking over the yellow pages, we were talking about a 5-year period. We could be looking at a completely different landscape in the next 12 to 18 months in terms of search, so.
Yeah, I mean, as you're saying, that's like seeing how fast AI has come just in the past 1 or 2 years and how quickly it's getting faster and catching up compared to a 3 to 5 to maybe 10-year shift that we talked about in the past when Google came along and iPhones came along. It's happening much faster now. So just trying to act quick and get ahead of the curve is the most important thing to do. So amplify that voice and be consistent with that voice.
Man, Justin, this was a great convo. I really appreciate you coming on. Let these people know where they can find you at. Where are you at? What's going on?
Yeah, man. Thanks. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity. I always love talking about what I do and what's changing. It's exciting, just especially talking about specialty retail in the past. But main thing I'm doing is just justinmckelvey.com is the easiest place to find me. I'm most active on LinkedIn and Instagram, just kind of sharing what I've learned and what's changing. So constantly putting stuff there, so you can reach out to me at any of those spots. Superduper.com is my marketing company. So that's where we help people implement these kind of things and make sure they're getting ahead of the curve and really understanding what they're doing. So feel free to reach out to me at all those spots. I'd love to talk to you.
I highly recommend you follow Justin on LinkedIn. He posts some good, I'm going to let him co-opt my retail therapy gyms. They're AI therapy gyms. And he's a great inspirational follow. So I really appreciate your time today, Justin. Thank you very much.
Awesome, man. Thanks.